Good afternoon.
Hey, Ron. Hey, Gavin, how you doing?
Hey, Doug, how are you? Ron?
Good afternoon.
Good.
I'm excited about this agenda.
No kidding.
Hey, Mal. Well, what makes you so excited about it?
That's short.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. When I was the city attorney for Franklin, if I ever said something like that, the planning director would almost take my head off because every time I said that, it would jinx us,
Oh, exactly.
We didn't have short agendas back in those days.
After the last one, this one
Oh, geez, this will be a breeze.
Yeah.
can't be much longer.
I'll miss the drama, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
you'll find something else to satisfy that.
I think Lyle's got it at his office under the desk. Bourbon.
It's empty, Gavin.
Lyle's all about the drama. We know that. There's the Lord Mayor. I'm gonna mute myself in case I say something stupid.
Text Bunny.
Yeah, everybody said they were going to be here, didn't they?
That's what I recall, Mal. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll start in a couple minutes. I gotta drop some papers off up front. I will be right.
Ronnie, are you going to come to the planning commission meeting next week?
Yes, sir, I am.
I think that you're going to, he just needs somebody to help him along.
Is it going to be in person or are we doing a Zoom?
No, it's,
I lost you.
no, it's going to be Zoom.
Okay. But yes, I'm going to be there.
Good. Glad you're going to be there.
Jim, I thought we had a good meeting last night for the Cirrus Society.
Yeah, we do repeat ourselves though. This people that don't attend one meeting ask God questions from the previous meeting though. We had some of that last night, but that's okay.
There's Bunny.
For some reason, it's saying I'm Michael Blackburn. Is it coming up as Bunny or Michael?
Coming up as Michael.
I don't know.
Michael.
It's me. I'm sorry, guys. I was on another meeting.
Oh, sorry. I was muted.
Bunny,
you see me now?
you can change that to Bunny.
You're on, Jeanette.
Okay,
How do you do that?
Go up to your name and put the cursor on Michael Blackburn and it'll say rename. You do a pull down.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, welcome
You could
everyone.
also spell black correctly.
Welcome everyone to the January 12th meeting of Belmead Historical Zoning Commission meeting. For the record, we'll do a quick roll call of the members. Bunny Blackburn,
Present?
Jeanette Whitson,
present.
Gavin Duke,
Here.
Ron Ferris,
Present.
and I'm Mal Wall. I note that we're joined by the mayor, Jim Hunt. Somewhere out there is Edie Glassler, and I'm assuming Beth Reardon, city manager, Doug Berry, counsel for the city. That being said, a couple of words about procedures. Lyle Patterson, city building official, will introduce each application. The applicant or his representative will then present their case for why their request should be granted. The board will discuss and question. Comments will be solicited from the public wishing to speak for or against the issues. We do ask that for the record you identify yourself when you speak. The public portion will then be closed. The board will discuss and debate among itself and then vote to approve, deny, or defer. All that being said, minutes. Does anyone have questions, comments, changes for the minutes?
I do not. Ron Ferris.
I do not.
No,
I don't.
no,
Have
David.
a motion to approve.
I make a
Motion
motion
to
that we
approve.
approve the minutes.
And
I second the
seconded.
motion. Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Oh, we should probably vote for the record. The chairman votes aye. Gavin,
Aye.
Bunny,
Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Jeanette,
Aye.
all ayes. Okay, Lyle, first case.
Just want to remind everybody, we're using a transcribed program called Otter, and try to speak into the microphone and try not to speak over each other. It'd be most beneficial. Okay, first item under old business, the application for certificate of appropriateness for DAC Properties LLC, 717 Westview Avenue, to construct a new single-family home on a vacant lot. I believe they're deferring to next month. First item under new business is the application for a certificate of appropriateness for Province Builders, 903 Linwood Boulevard, for the demolition of existing home, which is property of conservation, returning later with plans for a new single-family home. And John, I believe you're up, and I will share my screen. John, if you're ready, go ahead.
John Swift with Province Building, current owner of 903 Linwood, and come to you today with a request to permission to demo the house, as we feel it does not have any historical significance in terms of its architecture currently. And we'd like to be able to demo the house and put a new single-family residence in its place.
Can we get a date on this home?
The new home,
No, John, no,
No, the
how,
one you want to demo.
no.
Looks like 1945, property of conservation is between 1940 and 2000.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So it looks like from the agenda, we are only talking about demolition and not what's going back.
yes,
I mean, are we okay with that? Because initially, we said we weren't going to do this. We were going to, and I understand that we discussed them, in two different parts of the proposal, but I think that's something we've got to kind of, is this what we're going to do, guys?
This was actually done over on Linwood, the little small white cottage home that I think the owner wanted to sell to make it more
I
attractive.
know, and we talked about at the time, that it couldn't be renovated, and it just I think that our committee just needs to talk about, is this what, I mean, we're setting up a precedent here because there are two on the agenda, same thing today. Is this what we're going to start doing?
I'll jump in and sort of tag on to what Lyle was saying. The last time this came up, at least I got comfortable with making a call up or down, knowing that the applicant still had to bring back a design to the board. So and my position is we still have the oversight of anything that's going to go in its place.
Yeah, that's the way it is over in Westview. They have to bring that. There's no house on that lot.
Okay, so when you get a demolition permit, what about the people who live on, I'm just want to kind of think through this together.
Yeah.
What about the people who live next door? So what does the property look like once this house has been torn down? Do they have to maintain the yard? Do they have to make sure there's no erosion? If these houses have a basement, there's going to be a hole in the ground. I mean, what are we doing while we're waiting for their other house to come before us and get approved? And I just want us to talk through this process a little bit. And I'd like some input from Lyle if he could answer some of those questions for us.
Yeah, definitely. Whoever the current owner is, if John sells this lot, whoever buys it, the maintenance part of our ordinance applies to them. They'll have to keep the yard cut, the shrubs trimmed, everything. The same maintenance agreement applies to everybody. If there's any sort of erosion problem whatsoever, they'll have to put up a silt fence or a straw wattle, a sock, if you will, to contain any sort of erosion.
And who, do you monitor that?
Yes.
And then what if there's a basement? Are they required to fill that hole in? I just think about little kids, this is a street with kids on it.
It comes before code violations, and people are brought up for code violations all the time. That's kind of keeping a lot in a minimal condition.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's a valid point to bring up, Bunny, that when this happens, we should indicate that this is going to be reviewed and put on a list for review to make sure that the property is kept up. But back to what Ron was saying, to me, I am comfortable with the bifurcated process. Legally, I don't know that we have the ability to withhold deciding on the first phase because it is not contingent on the second phase.
Is there a survey or any type of documentation? Are there any trees on this lot that are significant value as well?
There is a survey that's been put in place. I mean, that has been conducted, and there weren't any trees noted.
Okay, I guess I'm wondering also, are those boxwoods in front of the house?
Yeah, they are.
Wow, I hope you can save those.
Yeah, those are nice big boxwoods.
Should be able to just
That would be
burn them on the
significant,
side.
but certainly
I mean, to me, as far as checking the boxes, Ron, you're always good about going through the list, and I don't see anything of real detail or architectural significance with this house. Sort of a ranch
Yeah.
style house.
Yeah, I've been by all the submissions this month and pay particular attention to them. I think this house falls in a category of a period where a lot of these type of homes were constructed. I don't put, speaking for myself personally, I don't put a category of significance on this style of house. It's a ranch. It's respectfully done, but I don't find it as a contributing style to the city.
I agree.
I don't think it's a detractment to the city. I don't want to, say something that might hurt the owner's feelings, but I don't find it as a detractment as it currently sets. But I don't find it in a category of significant style and or construction technique that I would have a protracted conversation about how to save it. I would say that even if it fell into that category, then it starts to be a discussion about how you renovate it, and we're not in that discussion. I've renovated houses like this, and they get changed so much, typically for the better. But I don't. That this era, it's probably it's probably a well-built house, but again, I don't put it in a category of high style, as it says.
How big is the lot? Lot size?
half acre.
Okay. And one thing that I would just say and I echo everything that, I went to look at the house too, and I don't see anything that, makes me think this is a house that needs to be saved. I do think these boxwoods are gorgeous. But just when you come back again, just, to remind you, we're going to be looking at the other houses on the street, on the Belmead side of this street, just looking at what has been built there. So I would encourage you to be mindful of what is on the Belmead side of the street, because this, just as you're going through the design process, we're really going to look at that, because there are a lot
The one
of
next door, yeah.
Sure.
and the other side of the street is not Belmead. So I probably can speak for the other. I think that if you, when crossing that bridge in the future, I wouldn't bring us houses on the other side of the street, because we don't have any control over that or input on that side.
Sure.
Is there anyone else in attendance who would like to speak for or against this project? If not,
I'm Stephen Mason. I'm the next door neighbor right
okay.
next to it. And one of y'all did bring up a concern of mine that, if the demolition happens, what happens if all of a sudden the home that's proposed is not acceptable? What happens to the lot? So being the neighbor next door, I'd much rather know what's going to go on right after the demolition, so it just doesn't sit there.
Good point. Doug, this is Mal. Doug, can we approve the demolition, but not allow it to physically take place until they've got an approval on a new house?
No, I don't. Was that a client? Was that from email?
Yes, yes.
You all hear me okay? I can't see that. Am I coming through?
Yeah, you're fine.
It's not in our guidelines to do that. The control, as several members have pointed out, is that when there is new construction, it will have to comply with the historic preservation of the historic guidelines. The other matters, as Lyle pointed out, are matters of codes enforcement. And, we've got a lot of, not a lot, but other vacant lots in the city, and they have to be maintained and kept in good shape. But no, we don't have the power to defer action until they have a new plan, because there are other factors that would affect that. And remember, what our jurisdiction of this commission is pretty limited, really, and doesn't really get into things like that. So.
Doug, if you're finished, I can tag on to that just a little bit, because I've had some, and Lyle can tag on to this as well. But in general, the city has clear and distinct requirements for the maintenance of properties, be it with a home on them or an empty lot. They have to maintain simple, high standards of erosion control before there is a stand of grass established. And Lyle and his staff has always done a good job of requiring that stormwater be in place. And then if it sits there for so long, they have to put a stand of grass on it. It has to be maintained and mowed. Is that fair, Lyle?
Absolutely.
I think that if there is a basement in the house, and I don't know, John may be able to answer that, but if there's a basement in the house, I think Lyle has in his overview the ability to require that basement be protected and or filled in if it's going to sit there for a while. But the city's ordinances and their guidelines of property maintenance have long been in place to protect citizens against the concern of Mr. Mason.
John, could you speak to kind of the process of where your plans are now for the new house and kind of what your intentions are? In my mind, because you're getting a demo permit doesn't mean that's going to happen tomorrow, but we'd like to hear from you.
Sure. Yeah, so we've already got preliminary plans drawn up, prepared to submit to the board. And the photos, I believe, that you guys are looking at, I think those are the precedent photos that we provided. But where we are, we have a buyer or prospective client already. So we'd be looking to submit the plans, go through the process with you guys in terms of getting approval and move forward with construction as soon as we can. So there won't be a scenario where we're looking to wait or delay the process
Great.
into the concern of the lot in the basement. Not only is that a hazard for neighbors or any kids that may, stumble upon the property in the neighborhood, but it's also a liability for us as well. So if there was a scenario where we had a hole out there, we would fill it in temporarily until we get through the process, whenever that may be, with submittals for the board.
That's encouraging.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mason, is that acceptable to you?
Well, I'm glad to hear that they're, planning on going forward with, with the plans and building shortly after the demolition. That makes me certainly feel better. Yes.
Any other comments from the public? Then let's close the public portion and let the board deliberate. Do we have a motion for granting the request for demolition?
Can we just have a little bit of discussion? Just
Sure.
More to Bunny's point and what she brought up. And it may be something that, we can take up as a committee. Lyle, is there a time limit on, or should we think about establishing a time limit? It doesn't seem to be a problem in this case between applying for a demolition permit and then applying for approval for a new home. I guess I'm trying to take Mr. Mason's concerns into consideration. And perhaps we should have some type of time frame where we are going to require after an I know there are existing lots, but if we're going to allow things to be torn down in Belmead, I do think we have a desire to see those lots built, not to have a lot of empty kind of influx lots. So maybe that's something as a committee we should consider creating some guidelines for that.
Well, I will say, once you get your approval from the Board of Zoning Appeal, you have 1 year
Right.
to build. After you've pulled that permit, you have 180 days to begin construction. So you could possibly give an argument to 180 days or 1 year, and that may be a Doug question, because we have a lot of
Right.
developed lots in Belmead. I don't know how that would play.
Well, to me, it would just be moving forward lots where we're taking houses down. It probably wouldn't retroactively, affect any empty lots as they sit.
A concern that I have along this line too is, so let's say I feel like it needs to be very clear that, so you're going to take this lot and you're going to tear down the house on it. And so we're not giving you any assurances whatsoever that we're going to approve what you want to put back there. So you have technically torn down a house, but that should not imply we're going to automatically approve what's coming back. It's going to be under just as much scrutiny as it would otherwise. So I think we need to clarify that too. We're under no obligation to approve it just because you've had permission to tear the house down.
I think that's been established, but if you want to reiterate that, that's fine.
Because the house could be renovated. I mean, we're looking at it thinking, I haven't been in the house, but nobody's told me it's unlivable. It looks like there's probably been people living in it recently. So you're going backwards on your money initially. And that doesn't mean that we're going to approve and who knows how long it would take. Maybe it gets approved at the first presentation. Maybe it takes, it gets deferred a few times. We just don't know because we have no idea what we're talking about at this point. So we're not committing to a time frame for approving or there's nothing implied by as far as approval goes. And if we approve this demolition permit, which is fine. Initially, early on this committee, we didn't do that. We wanted to see what you were putting back. And then I understand how we've come to this point, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with it, but it does create some other issues as the neighbors, do they want a demolished, what do they want to live next door to? Mr. Mason just built a new house and he's got a beautifully maintained yard. Does he want a hole beside his house? I get that. And for how long?
Well, an abandoned house is also an eyesore.
I know. I agree with that. It can be dangerous. And I believe that house that we approved on Linwood, she proved that it was not livable and had structural issues too, which we've not discussed with this one.
Well, and to your point, Bunny, that house on Linwood, it was the owner of the house who was living in it, who came and to get the demolition permit because she couldn't sell the house to a developer. In this case, we're one step further down the slippery slope that it's now a house owned by a developer who wants to tear it down and put a spec house on it.
Why do we have to, Don, why did you not bring these at the same time? I'm confused as why you're asking now for the demolition permit.
Are we going to open this back up because we're in private?
Oh, I'm
comment?
sorry. That's right. Okay. Well, we don't have
I'm
to.
just trying to follow procedure.
Yes, thank you,
Yep.
Matt.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion?
Sure, please do.
We've got the 180 days after you pull a permit to begin work on a project. What if we did 180 days, the house could be, or the project could be dormant, if you will, until you actively begin pursuing approval from this board.
Doug, is that within our scope?
I think you could put that, I'm trying to remember if we have formal bylaws yet or just have our ordinance and guidelines, but you would obviously want to formally amend your guidelines to say that and not just do it as a matter of oral policy expressed at a meeting. So you're talking about Lyle, they would have to come back to the board within 180 days, win, lose, whatever they're doing, and give us a status report type of thing.
Well, it gives them, 6 months to, I'm assuming some people have already started to begin drawing plans like in this case, but it gives you 6 months to get your plans together, get it complete, come back with a conceptual idea or elevations rather to this board. It seems like it's a pretty good number instead of a year. A year can be a little long. Interest lost.
What happens if they don't do that? If they've torn down the house under the initial ruling. If they don't bring their plans back, what happens?
That's a good question.
I'm not in the policy making business here, but I think it's unnecessary to regulate this any further than it's already regulated.
Yeah, we were at the luxury, seems like earlier, to most everyone that's brought something to the board has a follow-up plan that says, here's what we're thinking about doing. I guess I'm wondering, we sort of slipped away from that. Is there any way in a bylaw future-wise that we can write
That's
a
my
proposal
concern,
plan?
David, and that's what, I just think we're getting away from where we were initially. And let's do this consciously if that's what we're gonna do, but.
If it were property of significance, it'd be one thing. I think you're talking about, it looks like a conservation property under the initial analysis. And I guess there's some category that's even less restricted than that. I don't understand the urge to regulate. I don't understand the urge to regulate here. The problems the gentleman identified, Lyle has said, are covered in other codes. And there's vacant lots in Belmead from previous years that are waiting to be built on, depending on the market. I don't know. I think if you did it, you just have to amend your guidelines formally, and if that's what you want to do, we can write it up.
All right, and that may be something further discussion for our board to meet privately. I do feel like we have all the information to rule on this this property today now. I just brought it up just to see what other people were thinking.
Yeah, I agree with Doug. I think that in case that those other ones were of historic significance when they brought a plan, and that may be right. The ones that are in the conservation may not be as critical.
I'm comfortable with the sequential step. I think it affords all applicants a fair hearing versus the process of having to put together a full design before you can determine if a house can be demolished. There's a lot of burden, and I mean, I appreciate that it may not, but
Good point.
the city, but I've heard from clients that struggle with the fact that, all right, I don't know what I can do with my property.
Very good point. Yeah.
I don't think we have in any way lowered our standards for this step that we're taking in fairness. I also wanted to piggyback on Bunny's comment regarding the approval, because I've said it in the past to other applicants, is that existing residences often offer benefits to building envelopes. And once properties are demolished, those benefits are erased and won't be recognized. I haven't studied this I haven't seen a site plan, but I caution any applicant, but prior to tearing something down, to understand what that means to your building envelope.
Yeah, and it being a half acre, it's going to be pretty restricted, I would think. Right, Ron?
Well, that was one reason I
Yes.
asked that earlier.
Yes.
Well, I'm comfortable making a motion to approve the demolition application.
I second that, Gavin.
Okay, Ron,
Vote aye.
Gavin,
Aye.
Bunny,
Aye.
Jeanette,
Aye.
Mal votes aye.
All right, the next item under new business is the application for certificate of appropriateness for Jeff Mobley, trustee, for 407 Westview Avenue for the demolition of existing home, property of conservation, returning later with plans for a new single-family home. And whoever is representing, you are up, and I will share my screen.
Well, my name is Wes Turner, and I'm the attorney for the applicant, Jeff Mobley, trustee. And Mr. Mobley actually represents a Belmead family who wants to buy this property, demolish the house, and then put it back, build back a single-family residence for their personal home. And so they intend to do this, assuming that they do get the approval for the demolition immediately. There would be no delay in this process. Their intention is to engage an architect who's experienced and well recognized in Belmead architecture, who would incorporate the design, material, scope that you're looking for in Belmead properties to give respect to the historic nature of the city and what's needed there and your historic guidelines, and to preserve actually things like the boxwoods and so forth that were discussed in the previous application. So that's the situation we have here. The house does not lend itself to renovation. It is a log house. So they're really, the option for them is that either that they've got to demolish it to do really what needs to be done for their personal family home. And so on that basis, we've asked the commission to go ahead and issue a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition.
Do we know when the house was built?
I think the history there says 1932.
So guys, I think we need to go through this list. That's what we've done with other properties. And so I think we need to get the list out and go through it. Or is the presenter prepared to do that, to make their case?
Yes, I am.
I think right off, I want to know, have y'all located is there an architect of record for this house?
There is not at this point.
Okay.
Well, let's just go down the list. It was built before 39. Does it possess integrity of design, materials, workmanship, setting, location, et cetera, defined for the eligibility for listing on the National Register? Probably could be registered.
Well, is this Mr. Berry?
No, I'm sorry, it's Mal.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was hoping it was Mr. Berry. I know him.
Wes, don't drag me into this now.
I was trying to get you in the fray here. Well, technically, whether it could or couldn't, it's probably not a house we don't think that's of that significance. And there's not, as far as we're aware, any historical events that would kind of bring it to that level.
Well, board, It is unique.
You know, I wonder if it were not a log house, it looks very much like the house we just ruled on.
Except
And
it's
it's-
older. It's
Yeah.
1932. The age is the difference. And so I think I just want to make sure, guys, that we're giving this house, whether we personally like it or don't, we need to I think, in fairness to everyone who presents, we just have to give it the same amount of scrutiny that we would any other home built in 1932.
Well, let's go down the list then, because
I
they
think
have,
we should.
they have checked no for every one of these. So the first, a broad cultural, political, economic, or social association with this historic development of Belmead, the state, or the nation.
Jeanette,
Yes.
we got two more issues on top of that one that it has to comply with before we come to the optional section that you're started on.
Oh, you want to go backwards? Okay. Bring
Yeah.
those up then, Mal.
Possesses integrity of design, materials, and workmanship, etc. That might make it eligible for listing. Probably it does.
However, I'll say that I did go see this house, actually because the homeowner contacted me, and I didn't speak to him except to refer him to Lyle, but it did look like, the windows had been replaced. The front door may or may not be original. I mean, the house has been altered over the years.
Well, let's skip that one for the time being and go to the next one. Does it embody such other qualities and characteristics that in our judgment should be considered significant in the history and architecture of Belmead? The only log house in the city.
There's actually two.
I've got one across the street from mine at 407 Linwood.
I think the discussion there is if here's my position on it. If the city of Belmead was ripe with numerous examples of this that carried a broader historical context, I would start to be a little more concerned about tearing them down. I've worked on log homes before, several of them. I'm just finishing up something similar to this over in East Tennessee. I have not found a log home that possesses materials, workmanship of a high standard. They're a crude building style, let's say that. That's why we abandoned them broadly. And they don't possess the means to do any modernization to them without a ton of challenges. They're you can't insulate them. You can't put doors and windows in them. The primary component that starts to drive whether or not a log home makes sense to renovate is the quality of the logs that were used in its construction. I can't advise on the quality of these, but in general, you have such movement with those logs and through the seasons that they create lengthy issues with the chinking and the opening and closing of joints. Then we can get into the style bit in a little bit, but I don't see it possessing design, materials, workmanship, those sort of things.
I would agree. And also the fact that there's no way to open up walls in a log house in order to modernize it. there are no walls to open. They are chink and log, and there's no spacing inside. So anything that's been done has probably been done below the first level, which would then preclude being able to go up a level to create, more living space.
Well, there's clearly some disutility in this property. It's been for sale every 2 years for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
And I think too, it is unique, but I would say that it would have always been out of place. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm struck in driving by. There would have been no historical precedence for building this house at the time that it was built. By 1932, the log home had been abandoned basically unless it was just done or unless someone builds one for the uniqueness of it today. But I don't think, I don't remember who said earlier, if there were a log, if Bellmead were known for its log cabins, maybe we would look at preserving it a little more closely. And I think that and going back to the age thing, that we want to be so sensitive and really take seriously the demolition of anything prior to 1939. I do think that we have to look at some of those homes and say, do they really offer us anything historically to preserve? And I don't know that this house does that. I don't look at it and think this really is contributing to that street.
Well, and normally if there is a preservation element to it, it's usually as an outbuilding. There's a house on Honeywood, on Ellendale, that has a back building that was an original log house, but it's been preserved as an outbuilding, but that is not an option with how large this house is.
Yeah. And the disutility, I think, is the key word to go back to that.
Yeah.
This would be a place that I think if you're asking someone just to live in this house as it is, I don't know that we have the right to say, we acknowledge that this thing can't be renovated or improved, but we expect you to live with it. I just don't know that that's what this committee is supposed to be doing.
Is there anyone else in attendance who would like to speak to this issue for or against? If not, let's close the public portion. And board, since it has failed item number 3 on the list for property of significance, do I have a motion to allow demolition?
I'd make a motion for demolition. Gavin.
And second,
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Ron, your vote?
I vote aye.
Bunny,
Aye.
Gavin,
Aye.
Jeanette,
Aye.
Mal votes aye. Any other business for the board?
What would you all think about, since we've been doing at this for a few months and we do have some questions, how would you all feel about doing a retreat of just a couple of hours just to kind of talk through the process and questions and concerns that we have?
I think
Is that legal?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
A Zoom retreat.
Zoom is fine with me.
Zoom's
I just
fine.
feel like we need to, so many things come up that. I just feel like
We do it for the Board of Zoning Appeal. I think that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, because we've uncovered enough stuff that's fallen through the cracks in the last 12 months that we need to sit and talk about. We had one today. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to do separate approvals for demolition and let them scrape the house and then approve a new one later.
Yes.
And we anticipated this, which is why our first, they are guidelines. It's
Right.
not
Yeah.
actually an ordinance, so.
So what we do with the Board of Zoning Appeals, I ask each board member to come up with some past years' situations that stood out, questionable. And if you would go ahead and get those together, I will send out a doodle invite by the first of next week for some different dates, and we can get together on a Zoom call if that's okay with everybody.
That'd be
That's
That
great.
good.
works.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Bunny.
I participated in the BZA year end and it was very interesting. I think it was a very good recap of the year, which is
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay. Any other business? If not, thank you all very, very much. Once again, you're great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.